In the ancient world, nestled in the bustling heart of Mesopotamia, lay the magnificent city of Ur. It was a center of commerce, culture, and civilization. And in this great city lived a man named Abram. He wasn't a king, a general, or a famous scholar. He was an ordinary man, living an ordinary life with his wife, Sarai, surrounded by his extended family and all the comforts that city life could offer. But God, in his infinite wisdom, saw something extraordinary in Abram. He had a plan for him, a plan so grand it would ripple through the fabric of history itself. One fateful day, Abram heard a voice. It wasn't a voice from his family or a neighbor. It was the voice of God, cutting through the noise of his everyday life with a call that would forever alter his destiny. God said, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you." Think about that for a moment. God didn't hand him a map. He didn't give him a detailed itinerary or a list of accommodations. There was no 5-year plan. All he gave Abram was a command and a promise. A call to leave everything he had ever known and step out into the complete unknown. It was a moment of decision that would define not just his life, but the future of countless generations. Now, let's unpack the promise God made. It was a threefold covenant, a promise of incredible magnitude. First, God promised Abram a new land, a specific place that would become his own. Second, he promised to make Abram into a great nation. This was a particularly staggering promise, because Abram and his wife Sarai were well beyond their childbearing years, and they had no children. The idea of becoming a great nation just have sounded impossible. Finally, God promised that through Abram, all the families of the earth would be blessed. This wasn't just about one man's fortune. It was a promise with global, eternal implications. Abram was faced with a choice: cling to the logical, the visible, the familiar life in Ur, or take a leap of faith and trust in the unseen word of a God who promised the impossible. In a profound act of trust, Abram chose to believe. So, with God's promise echoing in his heart, Abram obeyed. The decision was made. Imagine the scenes that followed. The careful packing of tents and household goods, the sorting of belongings that had been in the family for generations. Abram gathered his servants, his flocks of sheep and goats, his herds of cattle, and prepared for a monumental departure. His nephew, Lot, decided to join him on this incredible venture. Can you picture the courage it must have taken? To say goodbye to friends, to family, to the streets he grew up on, all for a destination he had never seen. He was trading certainty for a promise, comfort for a journey, and the known for the completely unknown. This wasn't just moving to a new city. It was leaving his entire world behind, propelled only by faith in God's call. The journey began. The caravan, a moving testament to Abram's faith, set out across the vast, unforgiving landscapes of the ancient Near East. Their path wound through sun-scorched deserts, where the horizon shimmered with heat, and over rugged hills that tested their endurance. They traversed valleys and crossed rivers, moving steadily into lands that were completely foreign to them. This was not a quick trip. It was a long, arduous trek, filled with daily challenges and uncertainties. Yet, with every new place they stopped, Abram did something significant. He would find a spot, gather stones, and build an altar. These altars were more than just piles of rocks. They were landmarks of faith, public declarations of his devotion to the God who was leading him. With each altar, he was physically marking his journey, creating sacred spaces in the wilderness to worship and remember the God who had called him. After what must have felt like an eternity of travel, Abram and his caravan finally arrived in the land of Canaan. As he stood on a hill, overlooking the rolling landscapes and fertile plains stretched out before him, God spoke to him once more. The voice that had called him out of Ur now gave him a new layer of assurance. God said, "To your offspring I will give this land." Imagine Abram's perspective. He was standing in this beautiful, promised territory, yet he was still childless. Sarai was still barren. He owned not a single inch of the ground beneath his feet. He was a foreigner, a nomad in a land inhabited by others. And yet, God confirmed his promise, painting a picture of a future filled with Abram's descendants, a nation that would one day call this very land their home. It was a breathtaking vision, a promise that required him to look beyond his present reality and see with the eyes of faith. In response to this profound reassurance, Abram once again did what had become his hallmark. He worshipped. He found a suitable place, built another altar, and offered sacrifices to the Lord. The smoke rising into the sky was a symbol of his gratitude, his trust, and his continued commitment. Abram still didn't have all the answers. He couldn't possibly know how God would fulfill the promise of a child, let alone a great nation. The how and the when were still shrouded in mystery. But Abram's worship wasn't dependent on having a complete roadmap. His faith was rooted in the character of the one who made the promise. He trusted that the God who had led him this far would be faithful to complete what he had started. His worship was an act of surrender, a declaration that even in the face of uncertainty, God was worthy of praise. Of course, Abram's journey of faith was far from a smooth, easy path. The Bible is honest about the trials he faced. His story wasn't one of unbroken success. There were periods of severe famine that tested his resolve and forced him to seek refuge in foreign lands like Egypt. There were conflicts, both with surrounding peoples and even within his own family, leading to his eventual separation from his nephew, Lot. There were even moments of fear and doubt, times when Abram took matters into his own hands and stumbled. Yet, through all the hardships, the mistakes, and the waiting, one thing remained constant. Abram kept moving forward. He kept listening for God's voice, kept building altars, and kept holding on to the promise. His faith wasn't defined by a lack of problems, but by his persistence through them, continually returning his focus to the God who had called him. Now, why does this ancient story still resonate with us so powerfully today? Because the story of God calling Abram is more than just a historical account. It's a timeless narrative about the nature of faith, trust, and purpose. It speaks directly to the human experience of being called into the unknown. Think about your own life. We're all, at times, called to step out of our comfort zones. It might be leaving a familiar job for a new opportunity, moving to a new city, starting a family, or embarking on a personal growth journey. Life often asks us to take risks, to let go of the predictable and embrace a future we can't fully see. Abram's story validates that feeling of uncertainty, but also provides a powerful example of how to navigate it, by trusting in a promise greater than our present circumstances. As we close, let's picture Abram one last time. Imagine him standing under the vast, clear desert sky, looking up at a canopy of countless, glittering stars. It was in a moment just like this that God would later reaffirm his promise, telling Abram his descendants would be as numerous as the stars. Abram's story is a profound reminder that faith is a journey, not a destination. It's not about having all the answers or seeing the whole path laid out before you. It's about taking that first step, and then the next, trusting the one who guides your way. From the obedience of one ordinary man, a great nation was born, and through that nation, a blessing came to the entire world. So, the next time you feel a call to step into the unknown, remember Abram. Remember that sometimes, the greatest adventures of your life, the most profound blessings, begin with a single, courageous step of faith. Thanks for watching. If this story inspired you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more content that explores these timeless themes of faith and purpose. We'll see you in the next video.